Hi, I'm Trin Johnson, and welcome to Dust in My Eye. If you like this video, please hit the like button, and if you'd like to see more of my videos, please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified of future videos, hit that cute little bell. I was going through some old artwork the other day, and I came across an alcohol ink painting of some flowers I had done. While I liked the painting overall, I wasn't particularly happy with the pen work. But it occurred to me that with a coat of clear gesso, I could do some pastel work over top of it. I liked the way the alcohol ink could shine from underneath the pastel work. So I tried it on another piece, a landscape this time. Then I thought, why not try it as an underpainting from the get-go? So I found a reference photo that I thought would work well for this technique, and that's the focus of my video today. So I decided to use a piece of Yupo paper, which is a plastic paper. You could also use the back of Kirkland photo paper or Costco photo paper. It works very well too for alcohol ink. And it's a lot more wallet friendly than Yupo paper. I used a Spectrum Noir IG2 colored marker to draw in my painting. I like to use a nice light marker because the alcohol ink activates it and it just basically disappears. I chose a selection of inks that I thought would work well for this underpainting. I consulted my alcohol ink chart that I made of all the colors I have. I find that very useful when I'm picking out colors for projects. I'm gathering all the other bits and pieces I use when I do an alcohol ink painting. Little tubs of isopropyl alcohol, a squeezy bottle of isopropyl alcohol, and a water brush filled with isopropyl alcohol. These little plastic trays from the dollar store work really, really well when you're working with paintbrush and inks. I tend to use not the greatest paintbrushes. I'm going to start with a lemonade color and start with the sun. Just get that lightest part of the painting in first, because that's really the focal point. If you've never worked with inks before, it's a lot of fun to watch how they interact. They're very bright and move on their own, it seems, at times. This is Sandal. You can't read it because I didn't quite have a good idea of where my focus was with my camera. I found this to be a little too pale when push came to shove. So I ended up mixing it with a little bit of the coral, and really the coral just kind of took over. These are Ranger inks that I'm using today right here. I also used a little bit of Copic marker refills. I did try a little bit more of the salmon. I must have felt I needed to knock down the coral. Yeah, because I didn't want it to scream. And that worked really well. I thought because of the sunset and the reflections on the water that this would be a good choice for a reference photo. It seemed like it would have all the luminescent qualities that would work well with the alcohol ink and pastel combination. This is Ranger's Eggplant, and the color I put in a minute ago was Stonewashed. Wanted to add just a little touch of purple to my blue for that sky. Now I'm getting out my fan brush. It's always a good idea when you work with alcohol ink to clean your brush out before you start painting, just in case some residual paint hung in there, because it's kind of hard to get it all out. I'm just going in there with some clear alcohol to smooth down the edges and blend it together. This is one of two brushes that I'm using today that are really nice little brushes. It's from a set, Creative Mark Micro Mini set, and I bought them specifically to use with my alcohol inks and then absconded with a couple to use with my watercolor work. Now I've diluted the eggplant with some alcohol just to lighten it up a little bit, and I've got a bigger brush for the larger area. Now I'm just going to lay down some color, roughly following my reference photo. Getting a general idea of where things are. A little bit of coral to pop in the water for reflections. I'm going to use neutral gray number 9. It's a Copic marker refill. I haven't used it before, so I tested it on that piece of paper to see how diluted I needed to make it. Wanted to use it for my shadows and my darkest darks, so I can really see them when I go to do the pastel work. Now I'm going to use Ranger's Everglades. It's a new color, just to get my horizon line in, all my little trees. It's a little bit too green, so I'm going with Verdigris, a color I just love that is made by Copic. You can tell by how messy the bottle is. I use it a lot. I'm going a little more detailed in this underpainting than I normally would. I just really wanted the alcohol ink to be able to shine through a little bit, and it really kind of gave me a really good idea of where everything was. Getting in there with the dark, trying to make sure I have good reference underneath. Straighten out my horizon a little bit. A little more detail, little reflections, and there, I'm done. Now what I should have done next is spray it with a couple coats of Camar varnish to set the alcohol ink, but I was so excited about showing you the next step that I forgot to do that part. So we'll get back to that. This is a mixture of clear gesso and marble dust via Susan Jenkins, and I use 2 parts clear gesso and 1 part marble dust like she suggested. You can get that from Blix. Clear gesso is pretty available. Also from Blix though. And it makes a nice, gritty, clear paste. The marble dust makes it a little less clear than without the marble dust, but the marble dust gives you a little bit more grit to work with. Now, because I forgot to spray this, the ink still kind of wanted to move, which I realized when I did my first sweep across that, oh shoot, I forgot to spray it with Camar. So I was very tentative and did 1 coat of the clear gesso marble dust mixture, and I only went one direction. Normally I would go the other direction and then decide if I wanted to have lines horizontal or vertical or just all over the place. But this time I was a little worried about the paint coming up. And then I always tape mine down. This is a Scotch Delicate Surface and a white Sure tape. I always tape it down when it's pastels because I like to be able to get to the completely to the edges of the painting. Otherwise the pastels can get caught up on the tape, even though I do have some wiggle room on this painting because I'm doing an 8x10 painting and I have 9x11 sheet of paper. I like to tape it from the back on the corners and then tape it from the front just so it's not moving and I can get, like I said, all the way to the edges. And there's my reference photo again, and I use that the pipe insulation that I set in the corner. I use that for blending when I do blend once in a while. And I was a little nervous about how this was going to work since I'd forgotten to put the Camar down. I wasn't sure what the surface was going to do. And so at any point I thought, well, I might have to start over again. But I really liked the way that it was coming together and how you could really see the luminescence of the alcohol ink behind the pastels. So I just kept going. And in general, it worked all right. I think I would have had an easier time had I sprayed the Camar because the other 2 paintings I did had been definitely treated with the Camar. And it would adhere the ink to the surface of the Yupo better instead of it kind of was floating on top of the surface. And the transparent gesso marble dust mixture really didn't adhere to the Yupo as much as it adhered to the alcohol ink. It was a little bit of a problem later on, but you can see me checking to see, is this going to work? Should I keep going? I'm using mostly Terry Ludwig pastels. I have some Blue Earth also, and I think I pull out Ammonia at the end. Trying to get my darks in first. Really, at this point, it's kind of a rough approximation. You can see how neat and tidy all my pastels are right now. Wait till the end. Not so neat and tidy anymore. trying to find the right color for the general water background. And I hit on this one, and this seemed to be what I was looking for. Now I've sped it up a little bit here. Now I'm using a really light touch here on this paper because I'm really not sure how much it's going to be able to handle because of my little Kamar incident. You can see very linear marks from the clear gesso combination, but it kind of worked for me this time because of the sunset and the horizon line. I have a light mauvey purple that I'm getting some of the highlights with in the water. And I'm going to work on my sky a bit. I like to work all over the page and not just one area at a time. I like to have some of the colors that are in the sky reflected in the water because that's really how it works. This painting was very good for that. This reference photo showed that off, and I wanted to keep that going. The trick is to use the same colors or similar colors without the whole thing just becoming boring. Working on the shadows again, trying to get that shadow of that tree branch. It was a cool scene. It was from the Michigan Irish Festival in Muskegon last year, and the sun was setting and it was just gorgeous. And that's Muskegon Bay, I believe. Do a little bit of blending with my pipe insulation. If you hear a kitty in the background, that's my daughter's kitty, one of her boys. We have a lot of kitties here right now because of COVID. Trying to get that nice peachy pinky reflective light in the water. A little bit of light, little dark, little layering. I still think the alcohol ink painting shines through. I'm gonna get some of the darker details in. Just an idea of where they are. On my trees and my horizon line. edges. Just very roughly in there right now with the darker color and now some of the lighter color on top. Like all my pastels, it hits a kind of a funky adolescent phase before it comes together when you say, ooh, I don't know what I'm doing. And then, surprise, it works in the end. I'm shaking off all the pastel dust because I'm doing this on a flat surface this time. It was getting quite dusty. This is where it got a little tricky. I'm trying to draw my branches in for the one bush that has a little bit more definition, and you can see the white spot, it kind of peeled the gesso right off the paper. I was a little concerned and thought, oh shoot, now I've come this far. And now it's going to give me trouble because I was using a new pastel, which is a little harder. See, it just kind of scraped it, and that was not what I wanted. So I put a little of the Blair's Low Odor Fixative on there, and it gave it a little bit more tooth to work with on top, and I was able to get what I needed from that part of the paper. It worked quite well. I was able to get enough coats on there to get all the parts the way I wanted them. A little bit of light. I'm working on what would normally be called sky holes, but in this case they're more like water holes, where the water is peeking through the bush and the tree leaves. And you'll see me go back in there and do that a little more later. And like now it's sky holes. Trying to find the right mix of greens to give me the difference between the tree and the bush or top of a tree or whatever that other part is, to get them some space and something that separates them, and you can, so they don't just merge from one to the other. More highlights. Just a little indication of those little trees that are on the horizon. And I wanted to get a little bit of brighter yellow in there because I wanted that part to pop. So I added a brighter yellow to my palette. Now I'm taking a really dark charcoal, I believe this is the Mungyo one, and I'm rolling it to make random branch shapes because I find that I get a more impressionistic kind of branch when I do it this way than when I try and draw them in, especially when I am not using a very hard pastel, and the hard pastels did not work really well on this paper because of the Khmer again, and just the softness of the gesso on the paper. like I said, I did not find that to be an issue at all with the other two I did that had been treated with the Camar. So I do not recommend not giving the alcohol ink a spray of fixative. And Camar particularly is the kind that works well with alcohol inks because it doesn't move the inks. If you spray it with other fixatives, it will move the ink and you'll have a hot mess. So that's why I really, really recommend the Camar. Now I'm really getting those water holes in and making it look like it's peeking through. Okay, I'm calling it, but I do have to say, I went back in and looked at it the next morning and fiddled around a little bit when I could take a better look at it, and tweaked a few things. And here it is, all framed out with all the flotsam and jetsam around the edges cut off. And I think it turned out nice, and you can really see that the alcohol ink underpainting gave it a little bit of a different feel than other underpaintings. Well, thanks for watching my video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And please check out my Etsy shop, Dust in My Eye. I'll have prints of this piece along with my other pieces available to purchase on my Etsy shop, along with my monsters and my pendants and some original alcohol inks. See you next time. Thanks again for watching.